and I'm from Brazil. 2 years ago, I did an exchange program in Peru, and my host family used to attend Bridgeway, and that's how I started to know Bridgeway and start coming. But I don't have a driver license or a car here, and Bob and Carrie take me every Sunday, which is really nice from them.
Hi, my name's Andy Dicken. I've been going to Bridgeway since May of this year, and I was invited by my sister and brother-in-law, Allie and Derek Pond.
It's a really friendly and welcome place to come, and always when I'm stressed and I come here, I feel a lot more relaxed and peaceful. I really think here is a peaceful place. That's why when I came back to do college, because I'm at IUK now, I decided to start serving Bridgeway again. And I also like the extra activities that they offer. I'm in a group on Monday, and also I help with the daycare that they have. So yeah, I really like and enjoy coming here.
Since I've been attending Bridgeway, kind of before that, I was just kind of drifted away from God for a few years, and He was there when I came running back, and Bridgeway's just really challenged me to step out in faith and do things that I never thought I would do before.
People here, I feel like they always try to make me feel comfortable. Also, like, it's interesting because Thanksgiving is coming up and I don't have my family here, but even though I'm going to spend with my host family, people in Bridgeway already offered me to spend with their family, to not be by myself in my apartment. And so I think that was really cool from them and nice. And I really feel like welcome here and more like close to home.
Yeah, since attending Bridgeway, God's really been moving me to be more active than I ever was before at any other church or any other time in my life, kind of carrying me through a season in my life. I think joining table groups has been super awesome, a lot of fun, and really just teaching me how to be a follower of Christ instead of just going through the motions or churchianity, singing the songs, showing up, but doing more than just showing up.
Hello, everybody. There we go. Sorry about that. So glad you guys could be here. As you guys can tell just from some of the stories that we've been able to share over these last couple weeks, it is an exciting season in the short life of our church. There are a lot of people that have been included in our family here. We're making a big impact in our community, and we have this incredible momentum, sort of the wind in our sails from God's Spirit moving forward. But as you guys know, if you've been around the last couple weeks, we have this big challenge in front of us. We have this big moment that we have in front of us because we're on a little bit of a clock to where, 18 months, 17 months from now, we don't have a place to gather. And so our leadership here, we have decided that our best course of action forward for us to continue the ministry of Bridgeway is to build a new home for us to gather in and to bless Kokomo from. And so we purchased the lot right over there across the street, a big parking lot, 2.8 acres, and we're going to be building a new church home for us there. And so we are so excited about what that looks like, how we're going to be able to enfold more people and bless our community even more through that facility. But we're asking for us all to stretch and to grow into the people that God's called us to be so that we can build this future together. So the big scary number, we're reaching forward and reaching up for $1.25 million in cash by our third birthday in March, so that we can have a down payment, a great down payment on our construction loan. $1.25 million. That is what we are reaching for together towards this project. And so next Sunday is a huge, huge morning for us. It's a huge morning in the life of our church because we're having a commitment Sunday next Sunday morning, November 20th, where we are going to be asking every family that calls our church home to bring one of these commitment cards with you. These commitment cards are pledge cards towards what we need to have happen, what God needs to provide for us to move forward in this project. And so you guys have these cards in the seat backs in front of you or behind you if you want to take a look at them. But we're asking you, if you're a part of Bridgeway, unashamedly, unabashedly asking you to have this spiritual act of worship towards God with what we're going to do together through this. This is not a transaction, but this is a spiritual thing where we are bringing an offering before God. We're putting God first in our finances and in our world. And so we're asking everybody to do three things: to make a one-time gift, make the largest gift that you've ever given to our church, or maybe any kind of charity or nonprofit. That's going to push against that $1.25 million, so it's really, really vital, because that's the only way that we get hammer swinging, is if we get to our down payment goal there. To do a recurring gift, which is like monthly, bi-weekly, weekly, things like that. And we have over 190 families already doing that. If you are already doing that, we're asking you to stretch that for a 2-year period of time, to grow that so that we can lift our financial ceiling, because we're going from renters to owners. And if you are not giving yet in any way, this is a great time to start, a great place to start with a recurring financial gift, whether that be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, to the ministry of Bridgeway if you feel led to do so. And then lastly, we're asking you to give creatively, to look at the stuff that we have, the things that we own, and actually sacrificially sell those things and give the proceeds towards this fund as well. So we're asking each and every one of the families that make up our church to do this together so that we can reach our goal. Now, our goal is $1.25 million. I'm really excited to share that thus far, just through some of the meetings that we've been able to have, we are already at a church $675,000 pledged towards that first down payment, right? So $675,000 against that $1.25 million. I've been singing Bon Jovi all week. You know, whoa, we're halfway there. Living on a prayer and some rather large checks. That's how we're going to make this thing happen. But we're excited. I want you guys to hear that, because we are moving forward. God is going to provide this in an incredible way. But we cannot, hear me, we cannot assume that someone else is going to do this for us. This is going to take all of us taking ownership over what God has blessed us with, to bless him and his work forward with. So I want to encourage each and every one of us to jump into this. So next Sunday, November 20th, it'll be a part of our service where together our families will be able to drop off these commitment cards, these pledges. And that way we as the leadership here will know where we're at and where we need to fill gaps and how we need to move forward in this. But I'm hoping that you guys will consider joining us in this and partnering with God in this next season of our church. It is exciting times for sure. Okay, so here on Sunday mornings, we've been talking about what it means to become a person of God's future. What does it mean to partner with God, not just to believe in God, but to partner with God? And to do so, we've been looking at this ancient man by the name of Abram or Abraham, and we've been learning so much from his story. And today we're going to look at sort of down the line in his family, how this project of partnering with God plays out. But we're going to talk today about love. We're going to talk today about sacrifice. You think you hear the word sacrifice in our Western American individualized culture. Isn't sacrifice kind of like a dirty word? Like, we don't want to sacrifice anything. Everything is always in our culture just about up and to the right. I mean, where's the stock market today from a year ago, right? If it's not up and to the right, it feels like a loss. Where's our salaries 5 years ago compared to today? Are we making more money? Are the houses that we're living in and raising our families in, are they bigger than the houses that we were raised in? Are we upgrading and having more space? We're always thinking up and to the right. Sacrifice is a word we don't like talking about when it comes to our financial world, or when it comes to our comfort, when it comes to any area of our life. We don't like talking about sacrifice. But what's fascinating to me about just the topic and the power of sacrifice is that, I don't know about you, but when you encounter a movie, a TV show, a book, and there's a heroic sacrifice, I mean, there's something that is moved deeply inside of us, right? When somebody lays down their life, or they lay down their rights, they lay down something for a greater good, isn't it true that something's always moved inside of us? I think back to 2 movies in the 1990s that won the Oscar for greatest movies of all time. I think about Terminator 2. That's exactly what you guys were thinking, right? Judgment Day, right? You have Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the Terminator T-800. And near the end of the movie, there's this heroic scene where he decides he's going to lower himself into molten lava to destroy himself, to give up his life so that this chip inside of him can't be used against the human race. And in this dramatic fashion, James Cameron, the director, has the final shot of Arnold Schwarzenegger's character being lowered into the lava. Here's the shot right here. Thumbs up. So cool. I'm like a teenage boy just crying. This is so powerful, right? I think back to this. I also think about the movie that probably changed my life more than anything else as an adolescent, Independence Day. You guys remember that movie? You had Will Smith, you had the aliens, you had all the catchphrases, everything being destroyed. It was crazy. But there was a character in the movie, Randy Quaid, is kind of this drunk crop duster who used to be like a naval pilot. And near the end of the movie, they're finally going to take out the big spaceship, the mothership. The shields are down, and everybody's got a couple rockets left. He's got the last rocket, but it's stuck. And so he decides to sacrifice his life and go and take his airplane and go right in to the mothership instead of shooting a rocket. And we see this iconic shot of Randy Quaid, who I think he won Best Actor of all time for this scene, probably. But you see this, right? Anybody remember the phrase that he said? He goes, "Hello, boys, I'm back," because he says he was abducted by aliens earlier in the movie. I mean, this is like stuff that'll just wreck you. And maybe for you, it was reading the Chronicles of Narnia, seeing Aslan lay down his life to the evil witch in a way of setting free a child. Maybe for you it was reading in other literature about these things. Or maybe for you, you're a comic book nerd like me, and when Tony Stark took down Thanos with the snap and said, "I am Iron Man," I mean, all the tears, right? I mean, these are moving things. And I bring this up because there's something inside of us that moves when we see sacrifice, right? There's just something inside of us. And I believe that there's a little bit of breadcrumbs. There's signposts when we see acts of heroic sacrifice to the gospel. I think that all of these reasons why they move us is because in the gospel we see Jesus lay down his life for us. And everything else is an archetype of this story of the God of all the cosmos and all of creation laying down himself for I think that's I'll watch a movie and I'm like, oh, there was a big Jesus moment, Megan. It just made me lose it. And it's always when there's somebody who doesn't have to, but they lay down their life for somebody else. Sacrifice is so powerful. I believe that sacrifice is powerful because of this reality right here. Sacrifice is the outworking of love. Sacrifice is what love looks like with skin on. Sacrifice is what love is when it's got dirt under its fingernails. It's got skinned knees. When it's in the game, love always looks like sacrifice. And sacrifice is the only thing that ever changes anything, you guys. Isn't that true? I mean, think back to if you were in school and you were on a career path and you had to sacrifice time with friends. You had to sacrifice doing things that you wanted to do so that you could move forward and get the job that you wanted and work in the sector that you wanted to work in. If you're a parent, think about how sacrifice has been so powerful for you. Sacrifice is the only thing that ever changes anything. And in parenting, what parenting taught me was two simultaneous things. Parenting almost immediately taught me how selfish I am, right? But it also taught me this simultaneous reality, that I have a capacity to sacrifice and love that I didn't think was possible. Sacrifice is the outworking of love, and when we see it, we're moved by it. When we experience it, it transforms us from the inside out, but it is a dirty word in our language today and in our culture today. Here's a beautiful definition of sacrifice I want to use as we move forward this morning. Sacrifice is the willful surrender of something for the sake of something greater. Sacrifice is you laying down something that matters to you by your own accord, willfully surrendering something for the sake of something bigger, more beautiful, greater, something that might not automatically benefit you. Like I mentioned earlier, we're looking at the life of this ancient man by the name of Abram or Abraham. And we've seen a lot about his faith journey and how he's grown and God has grown in his character. And at the very, very beginning of his story, we see that he hears God's voice to leave everything he's ever known, to partner with him and to be a blessing to all of the world. And on this journey, it's not an up and to the right journey. He has moments where he is nervous. He has his faith falter, but God is so patient with him, and God always provides for him, even when he was least expecting it. Last week, we discovered that because of this partnering with God and this journey with God, this faith experience, his priorities were upside down from what we might experience our priorities to be. Where our priorities often are, how does this benefit me, myself, and I, and the people that I'm legally obligated to take care of? And his priorities were more about giving God his first and his best, and honoring God and trusting God, and then taking care and serving and loving other people. So we see this incredible experience of him walking with God, partnering with God, and the faith journey that he's on. And today we're going to skip forward into a generation, not just through Abram and his family, but to Abram's child, his promised child, Isaac. And Isaac is a grown man now, and his father and his mother have passed away. But we see lots of the lessons that we learned and Abram learned have now taken root inside of Isaac and his life and his family. We're going to spend some time in a story. Honestly, I've never heard a sermon out of this story. This is Genesis chapter 26. So I'm always excited to dive into something that is new, something that is kind of fresh in a lot of ways. But this is such a challenging text about sacrifice, about love. And I believe it's a challenging text to this moment that we find ourselves in here at Bridgeway for this season. So let's dive in together and learn about Abraham's son, Isaac. We see here, Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. So very similar to Abram's story, where Abram was blessed by God and he accumulated wealth. We see Isaac is in the same shoes here. But what's amazing is we see from the very beginning of Isaac as an adult, you've seen his character and his story. He doesn't realize or think that he's blessed or God has just let him do his thing, but he sees that all of his blessings come from God. He's not saying it came from his business acumen, his entrepreneurial spirit or mind, but it came because God had been gracious to him. And I love seeing this from the very beginning because we're going to see this graciousness that God has blessed him with and his recognition of God's grace all the way throughout his story. So things are looking up and to the right for Isaac. He has a lot of stuff he's taken care of. And we're told this in the very next verse. Isaac, he had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. The Philistines were ancient enemies of God's people. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. Then Abimelech, who was the king over these Philistines, said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us." So what I want us to understand here is really important that he's being sabotaged. There are enemies that are encroaching in on Isaac and his life and his livelihood and his people. And they've sabotaged his water supply for his livestock and his family. And they've not only done that, but they said, "You need to get out of here. You need to leave or we're going to destroy you." And so this is like, God, where are you here? What are you up to here? I thought you're going to provide for Isaac and his family, and you've blessed him. Then what are you trying to teach us? And I think what's interesting is we start playing into how should Isaac respond? How would we respond? Would we be like, okay, I'm going to get a bunch of people together. I'm going to build up my army, and my army is going to go against your army? Or would you respond with, I need to get some people together on Facebook, and we'll start a group and start spreading this news about how the Philistines are evil. We need to fight back. It's our right. We need to stand up for our rights. Let's see how Isaac responds. So Isaac moved away from there. Isaac decided not to put up a fight. Isaac decided that peace and trusting God was more important than fighting back. So he picked up everything and he moved from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar where he settled. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there. He just left. No battle, no fight, no standing up for his rights, no complaining. Is this passive? Is this just like him being a wimp, him not being an alpha male? What is going on here? And we see here that the story is not quite done. The very next passage, very next verse. And it was in Gerar, but the herders of Gerar quarreled with those of Isaac and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Esek because they disputed with him. Then they dug up another well, but they quarreled over that one also. So they named it Sitnah. So everywhere that Isaac is going, he's having opposition. Isaac had just decided to move away. I mean, what's he going to do now? More herders are angry. He just doesn't seem like he's being very strong at all. But we're told he does this very next. From there, he went to Beersheba. So he left again without putting up a fight. But that night, the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham," which is very similar to the promise that God made his father. Then Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. He's kicked out of his home again. He leaves without putting up a fight, a battle, a war, no bloodshed, no complaining. He just goes. But everywhere he goes, he's having this opposition. But then God speaks to him right in his lowest moment. He says, "Do not be afraid. I am with you." I think this is what's going on with Isaac. He's made of a different stock, where he's trusting God. He's trusting that God will provide what he's always provided. And he doesn't need to put up a fight because his God is generous and will take care of him. And his role is to show everyone love and benevolence. And you see what Isaac does is just what his father did over and over again. He would build an altar and he would call upon the name of the Lord. He would worship this God to show this God that he is first in his life and that this God can be trusted. So countercultural. But I think this is the fuel that fueled his kindness, his loving movement forward, and him not having to scratch and claw for his stuff and his land and his rights. As he sacrifices, he's saying that, "Oh, my God will provide for me." And as you can imagine, things are just up and down for Isaac. So we see the very next thing, and the text is terrifying. We're told this. Meanwhile, Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, had come to him from Gerar with Ahuzzath, his personal advisor, and Phicol, I'm just making that up as I go, don't tell anybody, the commander of his forces. Isaac asked them, "Why have you come to me since you were hostile to me and sent me away?" Now let's put ourselves in Isaac's shoes. He's been ran all over the land, pushed out over and over and again. He's been sabotaged over and over again. And then the king comes with his commander of his army and his top advisor. Isaac's probably thinking, "I'm dead. All my people are dead. They're finally going to stamp me out. They're going to kill me forever. God, I tried to do everything right, but this is the end of the road." But the response from Abimelech is something that's hard for us to understand. It would have shocked the original audience, and I think it should shock our senses as well. This is what the response is from the king. Abimelech and his leaders, they answered, "We saw clearly that the Lord was with you. So we said, there ought to be a sworn agreement between us and you. Let us make a treaty with you that will do us no harm, just as we did not harm you, but always treated you well and sent you away peacefully." Which I imagine Isaac had some other thoughts and some grumbling about that one, right? But they said to him, "And now you are blessed by the Lord." And then Isaac just did something so shocking here. Isaac then made a feast for them, and they ate and drank. Early the next morning, the men swore an oath to each other. Then Isaac sent them on their way, and they went away peacefully. It's not the ending any of us would expect at all. But we see these heathen Philistines come to Isaac, and they drop their swords. They lay down their weapons. And they see that there's something different about you, Isaac. You're not always scratching and clawing for yourself. You're not always trying to win every time. And you know that thing we see in you that's different? That must be this God's favor. So let's make a deal, you and us, to move forward without bloodshed at all. This, you guys, is so powerful. we're not only told that they have this meeting, but Isaac actually goes out of his way and he prepares a feast for them. Food and drink and hospitality and shelter for these men that had made his life a living hell. In the ancient world, table fellowship was the practice of who you ate with, who you provided hospitality to, that you were in right relationship with. Isaac was saying, I'm putting all that behind me. I'm going to forgive and I'm going to move forward. This is what we see happen. Isaac, in radical generosity, in radical hospitality, understanding and remembering that his God would provide for him. He's always provided for my father. He's always provided for me. I'm going to trust him. And I'm going to take the loss. And I'm going to sacrifice my comfort for this moment so there can be peace. And he's probably thinking to himself, maybe some of God's blessing would spread from my family to these evil men's family as well. We start to see this mission and this partnership that had began with Abraham now come to be realized in his life of his son Isaac. Now, this is such a powerful story that I'm looking out at us here, right? And this is upside down for us. And this is something that's hard for us to recognize, what's actually going on. This feels like this is not Isaac who's like a hero. It feels passive. It feels not alpha. It feels kind of small. But what Isaac does throughout this narrative is that he gives us a picture of what love looks like on the ground, what sacrifice looks like, what trusting God looks like in the face of opposition and in the face of whatever comes our way. And my friends, here's the challenge for us. Here's the thing I want us to grasp as we're on the cusp of moving into this new season of our church, is that God is beckoning us to become people of love and sacrifice. And it's going to look a lot like what we see in Isaac's life for us to become the people of God's future. So a couple lessons I want us to see from this passage. The first is this about love. Love is always a sacrifice, you guys. Isaac didn't put up a fight. He lowered his fists. He just kept moving, digging more wells, sacrificing his comfort, probably took a financial loss, but he was trusting God all the way through. Hear me, you guys. Love is taking a loss instead of always expecting a gain on this side of eternity. Love is taking a loss for a bigger purpose than what we could imagine. Love is thinking about bigger things than just ourselves. In our economy, the way that we order the world, love equals loss because it's always not fighting back. But in God's economy, love is the only true win. Can you imagine if it started with us here in our church, that we were people that weren't on the front lines on our social media complaining about a coffee cup during a holiday season? We're talking about the rights being stripped from us. But if we were people that just willingly laid down our rights for the benefit of other people. I've heard it said before that the church of Jesus always is most attractive when we're fighting for others' rights instead of clinging to our own. Love is always a sacrifice. Love will always look like a loss and sometimes feel like a loss on the front end to us. But love is the only thing that gets the job done. What does it look like for us to become people who willingly sacrifice for the other? What does it look like for you? I think part of our problem is that we just don't think this works. We want to believe that the way of forgiveness and generosity and hospitality and radical kindness, it's a good idea. It's something we want to tell our kids about. But when it gets into the real world, we just don't really believe that it works and transforms lives. The story of Isaac and these wells and Abimelech is a reminder that God's way always works. But it's always going to look and feel like we're taking a loss so that love can come into fruition. My friends, God is inviting you. He's inviting me to partner with him to build the future, to spread this love and this kindness to everyone. But it's going to take sacrifice for us to think of a greater thing, a bigger thing than our immediate needs to make it happen, because love is always sacrifice. The next thing I want us to see from Isaac's story is this, that love is a commitment to others without conditions. Love is a commitment to others and their best and their thriving without conditions. It's unconditional. When Abimelech came to Isaac offering peace, when Isaac probably thought he was going to bring war, you notice that Isaac didn't make him grovel. Isaac didn't try to find a way around what was going on to make sure Abimelech got his comeuppance. He didn't try to convert him. He just accepted him at his table. He trusted this benevolent, kind, generous, hospitable God so much that he said, you just come to the table and I'll prepare a feast for you without conditions. I think this is so powerful, you guys, because love is an embrace no matter what. And you know this with your own children. You know this with your spouses and your family members. Love is an embrace no matter what, no qualifications. And you let God work through that embrace. And that's what changes things. You know, shame and guilt and fear are powerful motivators to get us not to do things. But neuroscientists even show us today that they're not powerful motives for lasting change. They're not powerful motives to actually move forward in kindness and growth and opening up towards others. Fear and shame and guilt, they're powerful at stopping us from doing things, not becoming something new. May we be a community of people, you guys, that has an open embrace to everyone, for everyone to come and experience Jesus, and to let this loving embrace from our God do the work. And we accept people without conditions. This is what love really is. This is why around our church we've got signs that say no perfect people allowed. It's why we say all the time that you can belong here before you believe. Let those phrases be more than catchphrases, but the way that we approach people at work. Yeah, that person at work. The people that drive us nuts on the bleachers where our kids play sports. How can we embrace them and be committed to their good without conditions? Loving kindness, this kind of embrace is the only thing that actually changes the world, you guys. Isaac showed us this. Paul in the New Testament, speaking of Jesus, he said this, don't you know that it's God's kindness that leads you to repentance? He didn't say, don't you know that it's the shame and the guilt that you feel that leads you to God? No, he didn't say that. He said, don't you know that it's God's kindness that leads us to repentance? May we be people that are led with this kindness, this open embrace to all. That's what really changes things. The last thing I want us to see from Genesis chapter 26 in Isaac's story is that love is a commitment to be a blessing. You notice that Isaac didn't have just like a change of his thoughts towards Abimelech and these men that had made his life a living hell. No, he moved forward towards action and made a feast, good drink, good food, and hospitality for his people, signed a treaty without holding the wrongs against them that they had done to him. It wasn't just a thinking exercise. It was something that moved through his hands and his feet and through his resources. My friends, love is a verb, right? Love is more than the warm fuzzies. Love is not something that we can just conjure up. Love is action, and it's a commitment to be a blessing. Love is more than a feeling. If I didn't have a cold, I'd really be able to sing that probably. Not really at all. Love is a commitment to be a blessing. You see, what Isaac is doing here is in Isaac's life, and in this moment, we're starting to see this promise that God made his father Abraham come into fruition, you guys. Genesis chapter 12, God speaks to Abraham, and he says this, I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you'll be a blessing, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. How powerful is that? That we're actually seeing this come forth in Isaac's life. That there's a blessing that's now not just to his people, but to other nations right then and there in front of him. You guys, this is what we're called to be. Not people that are just trying to convince people that they're wrong, but to be actively blessing our community and loving our community. I came across this book years ago called The Missional Entrepreneur by Mark Russell. In this book, Mark referenced a study of two teams of missionaries that went to Thailand. One team went for the sole purpose of converting people to Christianity. The other team went with the purpose of blessing the community. And so they were able to do an A and B study on these two missionary groups. One group went to try to convince people of Jesus. The other went to demonstrate Jesus to people. And the findings were really, really fascinating, you guys. First of all, they discovered that the blessers, the ones that went there, they made such a social impact that the community had a different feel. And there was a social betterment and social good that led to trust in their community. And the other finding was that the blessing group actually had 50 times more conversions than the converter group. It's almost like this blessing strategy from the very beginning was God's plan, and it works. My friends, this is what you and I were invited to do in this season of our church, is that we are invited to become a blessing to our community. And that's what we're going to do. In the next years, we are going to invite more and more people to experience this loving embrace from Jesus no matter what. And we're going to see more of the irreligious community have an experience with the real Jesus over and over and over again. And we're going to invite lonely people to leave isolation and come find a community around a table in our church. And we're going to invite so many people in our community to join us in bringing the up there down here to make Kokomo look more like heaven. And we want to invite you into that as well. Because love is a commitment to become a blessing to those around us. So this morning, I'd love to invite you to dream with us, to dream about the future and to dream about the ways that we can become a blessing in our community. So we've got this board over here. We're going to have another one put out here. Why don't you guys, underneath each and every one of your seats, you guys see this card. Would you guys pull these out, please? And reach for a pin while you're at it in the seat back in front of you, or if you got something else going on. But I want to invite you guys to dream about the future blessing that we can be to our community. So on both sides of this card, it's perforated in the middle. I'd love you to put a word or a phrase on both sides of how you dream that our church can be a blessing. So I'm going to jog your thinking a little bit and make this list up here quickly. For you, maybe you just write a name of someone that you know that you'd love to see connected with Jesus. That they don't believe in God, they don't want to have anything to do with faith or Christ. Maybe you could write just the name of that person, or you could make up a name. It just means something to you. Or maybe you could say coworker, or you could say something like that. But maybe for you, that's the word that you put there. Another idea is, maybe for you, it's a certain relationship that God would restore. Between you and a parent, you and a sibling, you and a coworker, you and a kid, a child in your family. Where would you like to see God restore a relationship in the future to be a blessing in that way? Maybe another idea is this. Maybe it's a problem in our community solved. Man, what would it be like for church people not to be people that are just complaining about things that are wrong, but saying that we're going to get our hands dirty to figure out the solution and work for the solution? Maybe that's something inside of addiction. Maybe that's something inside of our schools. Maybe that's something inside of the foster care crisis that we have. Or maybe it's something that you know about that God's just been nudging for you to say something about. You write that down on both sides of this card. Maybe for you it's this, a population of people to be included and served in our church that aren't currently represented, or you want to see more of it. Maybe for you it's families with children with special needs. And maybe for you it's people that look different than you. Maybe for you it's just people of different walks of life, but maybe that's something that God would nudge you in. Write down that group of people. I wrote on my card this week, my dream is that we would be a place that welcomes the outsider. I wrote, welcome the outsider. Maybe you could say something like that. One last one, a dream for the next generation. Maybe for you it's your kid or your grandkid or kids that you know, but a dream that you'd have for their faith, for the hope that they would experience, for their schools, for those relationships. And it could be something like this. It could be something of your own thinking as well. But I'd love you to, on both sides of the card, write the same word and then just rip at the perforation. Let's take a minute. Just take a minute. Let's dream together of how God could use us to be a blessing, to become people of love together. I'll give you a minute to think and write. So here's what I'd like to invite us to do. I'd love to invite you to rip at the perforation in the side that says Bridge to the Future. As our band leads us, I'd love to invite you to walk forward and just to clip this on one of these boards. And just to say together, this is our future dream for how we can be a blessing, how we can become love, how we can sacrifice for these realities to come to fruition.